Andre is the CEO of Hollywood Trucks. Under his leadership, Hollywood Trucks have become a pioneer in bringing clean energy and sustainable practices to the entertainment industry. Andre's vision has shown how innovation and commitment can transform even the most demanding sectors, and his work offers lessons that reach far beyond film production. So please join me in welcoming Andre Champagne.
I feel like this approach is a little bit better because it's not often that I get to speak about something that I love so much and with a group of people that really enjoy the same field. So I kind of feel it's more of a familial type of environment. But I'm Andre Champagne, real name, parents joke, founder and CEO of Hollywood Trucks. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is entertainment transportation. So what is entertainment transportation? Well, so has anyone in here ever been on a film production, seen a television series, shooting, or actually gone and seen it? Raise your hands. Ah, great. Yeah, Louisiana is actually one of the leading states in the world in film production. But if you've ever been on set, as this photo shows, really the single biggest line item in a production is transportation. And I always say it's very similar. I call it high-profile disaster relief, because everything you see is, substantial amounts of vehicles. And in these vehicles, you've got wardrobe, all the grip and electric, every single thing to move a motion picture somewhere. On the average budget, most people really aren't familiar with it, but we will have between 30 to 200 medium and large and heavy duty pieces of equipment on a production, per production. And it's generally the largest single line item. It's called line 3500. So it represents about 14% of the budget. So if it's a $100 million film, 10 million you can generally look at just for line 3500. Obviously, we've always had the same problems with it. It's always been fuel, ice-based engines. If you walk on set, you'll probably see 20 or 30 trailers all running from about what we call like 1,800 amp plants. So you'll see a couple of those burning about a gallon of fuel a minute. So it's a industry that we saw we could make a big change in. So what was the current problem? Current problem is exactly what we think it is. Burning tons of fuel, sitting there, GHG emissions, tons of expense, all of the things, film and television generally, when we go, you've probably had them in your neighborhood. Productions can be loud. So all of the things that you think would be the problems were and are the problems. So I sat there and was on set one day and was just surrounded by 5 1,800 amp plants all burning a gallon a minute, and just said, gosh, we have to do, if someone did something about this, we could really make a dramatic difference. The other part is that most of the time in the entertainment industry has been, you're probably very familiar, you have a lot of people with significant voices talking about how environmentally friendly they are or want to be. But during the actual application, not at all. Thankfully those things are changing. The great part is that in the problem sector, you've got a lot of these significant Fortune 500 for 100 companies that also had mandates that they're trying to reach. The other problem that we dealt with through the years is that when I first started trying and getting into transportation for film and TV, which was in 2011 on clean energy, there were no vehicles available, none on the propulsion side. You were fortunate if you could find, even at that time, I think Tesla just released like maybe their second Model S, but on the medium duty and heavy duty Class 8s, they weren't even invented yet. So those were some of the problems that were being faced in our sector. That led to me creating the company that's called Hollywood Trucks. And so many of you may have known about the company over the past years or may not have known about it. But it was formed right here in Louisiana in 2008 with the simple idea of I wanted to find some vehicles to rent to a production. Had a friend who loaned me some money to buy 5 vans, and before we knew it, with the growing industry in Louisiana between 2008 all the way up to today, we were fortunate to grow the fleet, relatively quickly. And so it grew from about 5 vans to in the first year to at the end of the first year at about 75 assets. Into the second year about 150. Third year 250 and on, and so Hollywood Trucks, even though the name is Hollywood, was started right here in Louisiana. Now, as many of you may or may not know, in 2014 we started working on the clean energy side, and as I mentioned, I was trying to really differentiate the fleet and go cleaner, but could not find anything. So I said, okay, and I always split the fleet into what we call propulsion and non-propulsion. And the propulsion side obviously being the chassis and the truck side, and the non-propulsion being the trailers. I was looking around for any of these, couldn't find anything. So I said, let me focus at least on the trailer side. And little did I know, that, we would have what a lot of you would call RVs, what we call talent trailers. And so I started taking some of those and ripping the roofs off and throwing a couple of PV panels on them, and, excited because I could run the 12 volts, and then, you throw a couple more on and maybe you could run some of the TVs and stuff. But the goal was like, how do we get this thing to be self-powered or actually power the entire thing? And so what that led to was like the next, being electrocuted twice, missing all my son's football games, like throwing more panels on it. And we had finally gotten to a vehicle that actually worked, what some people say or term off-grid, or my favorite term is autonomous. And so in 2019, we were approached to buy the company. Someone bought it. And so what I did was, even right before that, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. From 14 to 19, we built like 45, 50 iterations of that trailer, just going through, getting a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, until 2016, we actually had one that could run off grid for a substantial amount of time. And mind you, this is pre-electric, really battery technology. So I'm using AGM batteries and, 3.2 kilowatt inverters and barely any panels, but we accomplished it. And so what we were fortunate to achieve were multiple patents on those vehicles. And so by 2019, we were approached to say, I sold all the tangible assets of the company with the exception of all the intellectual property, and had 4 or 5 years of non-competes. And in 2024, I was really just like, I loved what I was doing. No one was still doing it yet. And so I said, okay, I'm going to just relaunch the company. But this time what I can do is I can build every single thing clean energy, because now technology's caught up, and it's a better time for it. And so I always say, we were focused on autonomous energy. A lot of people today hear autonomous driving, autonomous this or that. What is autonomous energy, and how do you get there? Well, it's difficult. So now, with all of the years of knowledge that we took, we are relaunching the company in live time. We build everything. And I always say autonomous energy begins with efficiency. And in order to achieve the efficiencies of building something that is off-grid or runs self-powered, you have to do every single part of it. And we learned that the hard way through 150 different prototypes. I say we're still in R&D. We've been in R&D for 12 years, with assets in the field, but we build every single thing in order to get to that ratio of, if you're gonna have a self-powered vehicle, the first thing is efficiency. How do you get it to run on the least amount of power as possible? Then how do you produce the greatest amount of power? And then how do you store that amount of power? And those are really just the mathematics of it. So what we're doing now is we're relaunching the entire fleet. These are actually the vehicles that you're seeing right here in these photos are, brand new. This is the latest edition of 12 years of R&D. Every single one of these assets runs 100% off-grid, autonomous from the day they leave the factory. I always say we never turn them off. So very similar to your home, you don't go to the breaker box and turn everything off when you leave. Same thing with a trailer, and that's a lot different from what's historically been done. But if you're looking at these vehicles, these are what we call two-room talent. And that one on the right and left, That is Christopher Nolan's actual trailer from the project called The Odyssey, which will be one of the biggest films in the world ever. And that's on the lot at NBC Universal. And that vehicle, mind you, not only powers and has been running for 2.5 months, 100% off-grid by itself, it actually, in that photo right there, it also has what's called V2G capabilities. So we have it tied into their lot. All of our excess power, we are actually sending back to their lot. And so now I always say the fleet's being rebuilt. It's being rebuilt 100% clean energy. We've got both sides of the table now, propulsion and non-propulsion. So, when you look at some of we call them Ecolux and Ecolux Airs. The Ecolux Airs, I don't have any photos on here yet because we've got a huge announcement coming out in about 45 days, but the specs on some of these vehicles, they're quite, I call them like my kids, so like the small one on the left, that is a 100% autonomous energy, 2-room talent trailer, or what someone would call about a 40-foot RV. If you look closely, it is charging that Tesla in live time while it's actually running as well. And so what you've got now is you've got some pretty powerful assets that have become not only from an autonomous energy sec, but they're mobile EV infrastructure. So every single one of the vehicles we build, for instance, that 2-room talent has a level 2 EV charger. And I don't mean this is trickle charging. I have these set at 50 amps. So, I mean, you're talking some pretty significant power. That 53-footer on the right, you'll see an announcement from our company in about 60 days. That'll be pretty global because those are mobile power plants. Every one of those 53-footers, we have anywhere from 150 kilowatt hours to 250 kilowatt hour batteries. We also have 20 to 25 1,000 watts of power on the roof. So you're talking a mobile power plant. That unit actually has 2 level 2 EV chargers at 50 amps each. One of the most wonderful things that, since I've been doing this for as long as I have, is that the industry now really wants it. So we're fortunate that everyone is really shifting over to the clean energy side, and they're starting to see not only just significant, enhancements in production from it's really fast to set these vehicles up. For instance, now, from a payroll perspective, we get to set, you pull the vehicle up, it's on. You don't have to do anything else to it. You don't have to put down all the base camp packages or the generators, the wires, all of those things. They are now meeting every single one of these groups has GHG mandates at the highest corporate level. So now we are not only significantly reducing the cost of the production, but we're giving them secondary and tertiary benefits. We're transferring carbon tax credits to them. We're also now in respective areas doubling their GHG reduction because you're not only powering the vehicle itself, but you're allowing everyone to come to set in their EVs because now they can actually charge the car while they're sitting there on set and they don't have to worry about range anxiety. And that's off of 100% clean energy because we're not plugged into anything. So you're talking the real essence of what makes a dramatic difference. People, we get asked every day, like, can I buy it? Can I buy one of these? Or can I do this? Or can I do that? And the simple answer is yes. I mean, we see significant growth in significant sectors. I mean, just when I was driving up here and I looked out to the right, there's an RV park right out there. And I always say, think about this for a moment because we could build the vehicles that we build could replace any of the assets that are on that lot. And you have 2 quantum shifts that happen in live time. Number one, you're changing every business model for an RV park. You don't have to plug the RV in anymore. Secondly, if you are the RV park owner, or let's say you're a Camping World, or any RV dealer, you replace what's currently on that lot with what we're building, you do 2 massive things very quickly. You, number one, give the client an asset that's unbelievably easy to use, absolutely quiet, just the user experience is wonderful. But from the actual dealership, you've got now, let's say, approximately 100 or 200 of these vehicles sitting on a lot. You're producing megawatts of power while that thing sits there. So you are now changing the entire balance sheet of that dealership or company forever. And that's free power all day, every day, month, year after year after year. And so our studios, fortunately, are seeing that benefit in live time. And it's one of the reasons that, as a Louisiana company, I mean, I can't discuss it too deeply, but, we just signed a major agreement to supply a Fortune 100 company with their entire transportation line item. We are going to take over. And it's because these vehicles, they simply put, the president of the studio, this is a value add we cannot replace. Because now all of, for instance, like their Los Angeles lot, they're going to have 100 of these trailers on the lot in live time. Two or three things are going to happen, first and foremost. Number one, the vehicles come on the lot to replace what's there right now. Everything on their current lot is pulling power from their grid. Once we replace ours, we take no power. So that's a dramatic shift right there. Number two, we produce a significant amount of excess power. And again, I'm talking megawatts. And so now, once these vehicles are on their lot, not only are they just absolutely silent, and they're brand new, and they're beautiful, and they give a great user experience, we become a profit center for them. So we've changed their P&L dramatically in what their power consumption is. And so they are seeing now significant benefit from that in live time. We can also transfer them the carbon tax credits that the vehicles are producing. And on the last note, it's like putting 120 brand new level 2 EV chargers on your respective lot for zero CapEx to them. So now they're looking at it in a different way. I look at the photo on the right, and the guys earlier were talking about the Tesla semis and stuff, and there is no, thankfully, media in here, but, I work very closely with them, and I can say that truck is really remarkable, and I know every spec of it, left and front, up and down, back and forth. And that photo of that 53-footer behind it is just a mock-up of what you'll see in live time get announced in about 60 days. But think about this for a moment when you're thinking about autonomous. How do you think it'll impact a company if you see that truck? First of all, it pulls up, it doesn't make a sound, but it's tied into that trailer, and you may never plug it in again. How do you think that would impact the balance sheet of someone? Because you're going to see it, and it's coming in about 60 days. Thanks.